want to begin, as others have, by thanking the honourable gentleman from Rother Valley for bringing this debate forward. And I stand to speak in this debate as a former English teacher of 23 years, an avid reader and somebody whose life story has been shaped and transformed by the power of reading. Through a difficult childhood, books were my solace, my comfort, and I don't think it's overstating the case to say that books were my life support. No matter what was going on around me as a child, whilst I was growing up, books gave me an escape, without which I really don't know what would have become of me. And every child should have that escape, that comfort, that access to building literacy, which cannot be just about what happens in a classroom. And there's one thing about the ability to read the words on a page, but it is quite another thing entirely to understand how language works, how meaning is created, and how language can be used to both persuade and manipulate. And this can be taught, but ultimately it is inherently linked to your experience of reading and the written word. And that is the true meaning of literacy. And it's something that we should want for all our citizens. And I confess, on a point that was made earlier, I confess that I have discussed with members across this House. I don't understand, I have never understood why folk in England, why MPs in this House don't trumpet more loudly their wonderful literary heritage and canon. It's hugely impressive. Dickens, Trollope, Shakespeare, Collins, and I don't understand why people in England and MPs from England in this House don't make much more of them, because I certainly would if I were in their shoes. And as an English teacher, I always made sure that every single class, first year to sixth year, regardless of ability level, every single one of them had the opportunity, indeed, I persuaded them that it was an opportunity, they really didn't have any choice, that they should every year have the opportunity to enjoy a Shakespeare play. Now, I understand that Shakespeare plays were written to be performed, but they're also actually extremely important in terms of the written word. I grew up in a home without books, as too many children still do, as we've heard, but I was lucky because I was the youngest of 8 children. And I was very often able to top up the very regular 3 books I was permitted to check out of the local library at a time. I was able to use the library tickets of all my older siblings. Added to that, there was also the primary school library, in which I took such an interest that my primary 7 teacher used to consult me about what books he should buy with the library school budget allocation. So, as I say, in many ways, I was very lucky. Many other children are not so lucky. And it almost goes without saying that children who don't have access to books, children who are not exposed to books, who are not provided with the opportunity and encouragement to cultivate the habit of reading, will not reach their academic potential, because the evidence on this is stark and unequivocal. Reading improves outcomes for children across the board. And as a former English teacher, when the new S1 intake arrive, the very first piece of short writing that you ask them to do immediately tells you the children who read and the children who don't, because it is immediately apparent in their level and sophistication of expression. And it's very clear to see. There is no downside to encouraging and supporting children to read. And unless, of course, you count the numerous rows which I got at school and secondary school for hiding in the changing rooms during PE so that I could finish the chapter of whatever book I happened to be reading at that time. Now, I noticed that many people have talked today about highlighting the importance of supporting literacy in the very young. And that is, of course, self-evidently the case. In Scotland, we have the Scottish Book Trust, which delivers 2 universal book gifting programmes funded by the Scottish Government, BookBug and the Read, Write and Count initiative, which supports families in playing, reading and learning with their young children and to help instil an early love of reading. And through this programme, all children in Scotland receive 6 free 6 free bags of high-quality books between birth and the age of 8, totalling 16 books across 6 bags, with an additional 2 books gifted to expectant parents in the baby box. Scotland, it is thought, has the largest universal book gifting offer in the whole world. Now, given my lifelong relationship with books, I'm deeply proud of that and the transformative potential it provides for children. Alongside this, across the UK as a whole, 19% of 5 to 8-year-olds don't own a single book, according to the National Literacy Trust, which is deeply sad, I think. But in Scotland, millions of pounds has been provided to support our libraries as well, through the Scottish Library Fund and other such schemes. Of course, I wish there was more funding for this. I genuinely do. But I think what is important is the commitment and recognition of the value of access to books and promoting reading that has been established as an important principle. So we can build further on that, and we certainly should. And I also appreciate the Honourable Member Strangford's comment about Dolly Parton, which of course we all applaud. Cultivating the habit of reading, of course, is important, and over the years people have come up with various ways how to do this, but I'm quite old-fashioned about this. I don't really think that we need to rely on children dressing up and such, and I know that children take great pleasure from that, but I don't think we need to rely on them dressing up as their favourite character. Although if they want to, that's fine, it doesn't hurt anybody. But the love of reading need not require such dramatic pursuits. Because ultimately, a love of reading is learned through appreciating the calm, quiet, powerful joy which is found in the gentle unfolding of a narrative, an exciting narrative, captured between the covers of a book or a Kindle, or even, as people have said, through an audiobook, in a way that cannot be replicated through the passive activity, although enjoyable, but the passive activity of watching a film. Our public libraries, as people have said today, are a real prize in our communities. Aside from the opportunities they provide for social interaction, warm spaces and digital inclusion, aside from all these things which of themselves are extremely important, public libraries are integral in our quest to raise attainment, to close the attainment gap. Because in order to close or narrow the attainment gap, one of the important things we need to do is provide access to books not just for children, but for their parents. We need to bring parents on that journey with us to narrowing the attainment gap, some of whom themselves may have grown up with no access to books and who have not themselves cultivated or discovered the joy, the powerful joy that reading for pure pleasure can bring. We need to create a wider culture of reading. If we want parents to read to and with their children, and as I say, my 23 years as an English teacher tells me that even at the age of 17, 18, these children, young people, love being read to. If we want parents to do that with their children, and of course we do, we need to get parents themselves reading. We need reading as an enjoyable pastime to become normalised in households. Very often it isn't. And we can tackle that, but I don't believe we can tackle that properly or seriously without access to public libraries. Very often in households it is now unusual for the TV or the music to be switched off and people to just sit and spend an hour reading either together or, you know, in the same room or reading the same book together. It's quite frankly uncommon. I'll put it no stronger than that, but it's less common than it ought to be. The role of teachers and the role of school libraries are, of course, vital, but public libraries allow children and parents to actively and literally discover and explore the pleasure of books together. So access to books matters, but instilling a love of reading also matters. And as an English teacher, I often found that children were very happy to respond to the encouragement to read and to read independently. But what you find is around the age of 14 or so, it seemed this cultivation of the habit of reading seemed to plateau. And there's a number of things, or fall away altogether actually, and there's a number of things that schools and teachers and English departments can do to tackle that, which I don't have time to tackle here. But we need to support, encourage and model to children the fact that reading is a joyful way to spend our time and can be an escape, it can be a solace, and importantly, a companion to us throughout our entire lives. So we should continue to ensure the best, most accessible and richest opportunities to read, but we need to take parents with us, and we need to reach out to those parents who we haven't yet taken with us. In a digital age, reading and literacy has never been more important, and coincidentally, the digital age is also a very important tool to support reading and get our communities between the covers of a book.